Most of you watching this discussion would have completed the mandatory NCRTs and the standard textbooks. You would have attempted a lot of tests based on these NCRTs and textbooks. And you could have even scored decently well in all those tests. And despite doing all these, you simply were not able to clear prelims. So it should make you wonder why. It should make you question the utility of reading from all these conventional resources again and again. Yes, the toppers every year make a recommendation to read the NCRTs and standard textbooks. But the toppers do not simply read only these resources. There is just a vast literature, huge number of books which they go beyond these NCRTs, and just that they care to mention only about the NCRTs when they give their interviews after cracking this exam. So when a casual observer who looks into these interviews, when they are under the mistaken impression that simply by reading NCRTs you'll be able to make through on this examination. In fact, I would say the utility of NCRTs may even turn out to be very limited even in the very first stage prelims itself. Let's say the year 2023, that was the year when the cutoff of prelims had actually drastically come down, right? And the reason for that is because the NCRTs turned out to be quite useless. And surprisingly, even after 2023 prelims, there were a lot of videos made on YouTube which traced certain questions of 2023 prelims paper to 10 different NCRTs. But just imagine, is it humanly possible to go and read all the different NCRTs, because you have around 30-40 NCRTs all across different subjects. And I don't think any topper would have completed all 30-40 NCRTs, right? So it means that cracking this examination requires you to go beyond a lot of these conventional resources, which most aspirants are actually clueless about. And that's why the entire time between June to December ends up getting completely wasted. It's because when I explore internet and when I explore various Telegram channels, I come across a lot of platforms which gives you a schedule for the next 6 months, for the next 1 year. And most of the schedule revolves around the same old NCRTs and Lakshmikant and same old textbooks, right? You are actually wasting your time if you go back to your NCRTs in the month of June to December. Month of June to December is a time where you should just shelve your NCRT. You should keep it aside. Go and study areas which you haven't been exposed to until now. This should be the first point of learning and strengthening those areas which toppers actually read, which you may not even be aware of that they even exist, right? So how can you do that? It's because every topper, though they do not mention in detail about what all they have done on a day-to-day basis, there is a set pattern, there is a common pattern of activities which most toppers would actually indulge themselves in, right? So this is a discussion which is going to give you some insights on what can be done in the upcoming months until December. Because what you do in these months is what is going to guarantee you success in all the three phases of this examination. Because what you do after December, that's from the month of January till May, whatever you do, mostly you are into objective question solving. Mostly you are into revising from the same textbooks after facing a particular test, right? So all those activities that you do post December, that's just going to be useful for your prelims alone, correct? But what you do from June to December, that is what is going to ensure your success in both mains as well as in your personality test. So in this discussion, I'm going to just give you some idea on how you can proceed from here onwards. To take the discussion forward from here, let me make a distinction between civil service aspirants into three different categories. Because an aspirant who misses out clearing prelims by 1 or 2 marks is very different from an aspirant who simply gets only 40 marks in prelims in general studies paper 1. Right? So we cannot club both these aspirants into a same category, and I cannot give all of you a common strategy to follow in the upcoming months. So this is the reason why I need to make a distinction between the aspirants into three groups. And in category 1 are those aspirants who miss out clearing prelims by a very thin margin. It could be 1 question, or it could be 2 marks or 4 marks, or it could after all be just 1 or 2 marks in CSAT, which could have actually prevented them from cracking prelims. But however, those aspirants have been very vigilant in the last 2 years with respect to how UPSC asks its questions. They'll be able to easily give me, if I ask them, can you tell me 4 questions from polity asked in the last 2 years in mains? Or if I were to ask you, can you tell me what type of question was asked from Delhi Sultanate in the last mains examination in GS paper 1? If you can answer this question, and if you have missed out clearing prelims by a very thin margin, then you belong to category 1. So for category 1 aspirants, my strategy and my approach to go forward from here is, you do not really even need to subscribe to any test series, because you have caught the pulse of UPSC, because you have been following UPSC's questions for a considerable period of time. And being in touch with UPSC's pulse and being in touch with UPSC's nature of asking questions, I'm sure you will be able to make your own questions in mind which would match up to the standard of UPSC. Whenever you see a news article or whenever you see an issue that's hotly debated in news, your mind is trained because of constantly looking at UPSC's previous year's questions. Now, with that kind of a training, you are able to frame your own question from this topic, which probably can be asked in the upcoming years. So, if you have this capacity in you, you belong to category 1. So, what should you do in the next 6 months? Just make sure for every theme that's there in the present news, or take your syllabus sheet of your mains, and if you belong to this particular category, what should be your way forward from here? Take the syllabus sheet of GS mains, word by word. Make sure for every word in the syllabus sheet, you prepare at least 5 pages notes. Just 5 pages notes for each and every word in the syllabus sheet, but all these 5-page notes should be made by reading beyond your NCERT textbooks and standard textbooks. Do not touch your standard books. You read any other resources. Correct? You read any other resource, make your own notes, but just that I want you to make your own set of notes for 5 pages for every word in the syllabus sheet. So this can be fixed as a target for the next 4 or 5 months. Now, coming to category 2 aspirants, these are the aspirants who would have also missed out clearing prelims by a very narrow margin, but who may not be really good with following UPSC's previous year's mains questions. Your mains preparation would not even have started in the first place. Throughout your last 1 or 2 or 3 years of your preparation, your obsession has always been into NCERTs. So if that's the case, you need a jump start here, because by the time you start catching up, it'll be already too late. For such kind of aspirants who do not have any exposure to mains preparation until now, who have always been focused only on prelims preparation, I think the best course of action that you can do is go and subscribe to any test series. And if your financial conditions do not permit, then at least take a test question paper of any coaching center and start writing it. Start preparing by having a proper schedule, a timetable for the upcoming week's test. Correct? You need to have an exposure to how UPSC can probably frame a question from a particular area, and that is what coaching centers address. It's because the tests that they set, the questions that are asked, would be set after putting in a lot of thought behind each of those questions, and the coaching centers, in order to preserve their reputation, would ensure that the questions asked in the test series would match up to the standard of UPSC, right? So you can actually borrow from the mind of coaching centers. So instead of you learning how to frame a question and how to look at a particular issue and how to read from different resources, instead of doing all that, the easiest course of action would be to subscribe to a test series, follow the test series religiously, make sure you complete each and every one of the tests, and as a means of preparing for this test, when you go and read a resource, let's say you read from electoral reforms document of Election Commission, because there's a topic in your GS paper 2 which says salient features of Representation of Peoples Act is one of the topic. So for that topic, whatever you prepare from Lakshmikant is useless. What you prepare from your NCERTs are useless. So that's why I say, in the next 6 months, just keep those standard books aside. Go to fresh resources. It could be any XYZ coaching center's material, or it could be the standard resource which you feel and which you are convinced is the best resource available to study for this particular topic. So if you can come across such resources, now what you do is you read it well, go and attempt a test in your coaching academy, and now you test whether the resource that you have read actually is useful for you in getting those answers right. Correct? So that's one way of checking, that's one way of fine-tuning the resource material that you actually use in the upcoming months. Because it is necessary that you must move beyond the standard textbooks, but whether what you read as a part of your preparation is serving your purpose or not has to be tested against a challenging question. Correct? And that challenging question comes in the form of a coaching test series, right? So if you are a category 2 aspirant who are good with prelims ideas, and I would suggest you not to simply waste the next 6 months just because you had a failed attempt in the last prelims. That doesn't mean that you have to once again start your prelim cycle from June itself. So June to December should be spent on exploring new resources, reading from the new resources, making your own notes out of that, and testing the new resources against the challenging questions that you face as a part of your test series. Correct? And the best way to test it is this year's mains. Even though you may not be sitting in the mains hall writing the mains examination, you can always take the question paper and experiment it yourself whether what you have read, are you able to write a decent answer for those questions. And if you're able to fare well against UPSC's questions, it means that your resources are the best resources. You can feel convinced. And with that conviction, you also start feeling confident. You feel that your entire mains work has been decently finished off. And in the third category are those students who, despite 2-3 years of preparation, could not have managed to score beyond 50 marks in prelims in General Studies Paper 1, who would have simultaneously failed in CSAT paper as well. Right? If that's the case, then I wouldn't be suggesting to you the same inputs, same advice which I have given to the last two categories. So your targets, your plan of action in the upcoming months should be completely very different. So you need to first make up your mind that if you're only getting 50 marks despite 2-3 years of preparation, it is going to be a long journey from here, because a lot of fundamental aspects of your capacity, fundamental aspects of your learning, all of that has to be corrected. And it requires a constant hand holding for you to be repeatedly pointed out where your mistakes lie, where your inadequacies lie, and you need to have such kind of a mentor. And if you do not really have access to such mentors, I would actually say, why don't you once again repeat your foundation course once again, because there is no reason for you to get only 40-50 marks, because listening to any decent class lectures would have taken you beyond 60 marks in a paper like this year's prelims. Correct? So there could be some problems with reading, because of which you're not able to effectively read and grasp from the textbooks. There could be problems with your retention, your ability to retain things, because of which you're not able to remember things on the day of the examination. It's only you who have to be a best judge of that. Right? So if you belong to this category, I have one solution for you, and the solution is just go to my pinned messages in my Telegram channel, and you will come across a post where I have addressed how to analyze this year's prelims question paper. Right? So there is a particular post where I have discussed about how you can look at your performance of your failed prelims attempt. And when you're able to read that, when you're able to go through that, you will be able to actually make an assessment of where you stand, where your problems really lie. And it's only when you start addressing that there is some kind of a hope next year. But if you're only getting 40-50 marks, please do not delude yourself into believing that you will one day become an IAS officer. There should be extraordinary superhuman efforts that should be put in the next 2 or 3 years. And if that can be consistently put in, and if that can be put in under the watchful observation of a mentor with a decent experience in this examination, only then there is a hope. So these are the suggestions that I have for aspirants who come under all these 3 different categories. Right? First of all, understand UPSC's examination is simply not all about reading from the textbooks, because when you keep on being dependent upon reading from textbooks, your mind, your vision, your imagination does not expand at all. Everything has to be spoon-fed to you in the form of 100-page notes, 200-page textbooks. You are not developing your own reliance. You're not able to develop your own ability to go through a random resource and figure out what in that resource can be made use of for this examination. And I think that ability is what lends some kind of a creativity in your answers. Because UPSC is bored of looking at answers of all aspirants which are just a template copy-paste of each other. Right? So that's why if you want to get this half mark or 1 mark more beyond than other than your competitors, you need to be bringing in something which is not known to them. And that something is what comes from your extractions out of a random reading material, which you are convinced is going to be meaningful and useful for this examination. Right? So start going beyond your textbooks. In fact, I would say forget your NCERTs and standard textbooks for the next 6 months. There is so much of learning to be done from the internet. The internet is so vast, and the learning that you do from there, it matters more, and it's more going to be meaningful for your mains, as well as to put a strong foundation for your personality test as well. Thank you.